Hey everybody, I'm Eric Schweitzer with the Gamer.com editorial team, and I'm here today with features lead Jade King to talk about the Mageseeker. And Jade, this is the one. This is the game I'm caping for this year.
Oh, game of the year. Are we calling it already?
I'm staking my claim on the Mageseeker. I think that this is going to be, I don't know if it's going to be massive, but I think it's going to be like this year's like sleeper hit. People maybe didn't see it coming, and it's actually uh, incredible. I'm hoping, because what I played so far really impressed me. I think you and I are kind of the same when it comes to League of Legends media. We're like not League people, but
God, no.
we're like we're
We got
both
Dead
pretty
Play
nuts
with
about
MOBA.
Arcane.
Yes, and The Ruined King, was it? That was great. Like the
Yep, the Rune King was
RPG.
great. So I love League lore. I love everything about League except League.
Me too. Like, everything removed from the MOBA, especially like Arcane and The Ruined King, and this, I hope, is kind of telling stories in that universe without needing that prior knowledge so much.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, so not an expert, but from what I understand, this is kind of an important story in Runeterra lore. This character is Silas. Silas is from Demacia, and in Demacia, the state has a monopoly on magic,
That's so cool.
and the enforcers are called Mage Seekers. They can find people that use magic and kill them and stop them because they're the only ones that are
Right,
allowed to use
okay.
it. So Silas has an ability to see magic in other people, and he was recruited by the Mage Seekers at a young age, and ended up getting betrayed by them when he tried to protect a mage, a non-sanctioned mage. So Silas was in prison for like 15 years, and eventually breaks out by stealing Lux's powers. Lux is like another league champion. So that whole story is told in a comic book series, a pretty famous league comic series called Lux.
Mhm.
And this game picks up at the end of that comic, and this entire story is an original story, but it's based on that. So Silas breaks out and rebels against Demacia, um, leads a revolution of mages, and the king ends up getting killed. And there's a lot of mystery around how the king died and who killed him.
Hmm.
And that's all the things that this game is going to explore. So that's sort of the background. The gameplay, as you've seen so far, is very like Hyper Light Drifter.
Yeah, that was the first thing that came to mind. Like even the movement and the layout of the stages is so
Yeah,
hyper.
yeah, and the pixel art style, yeah, all of that. But it's also very Hades inspired too.
Mm.
So you've got your like light and heavy combos, and Silas has like God of War chains. All of his heavy attacks are like these long range chain attacks. But the unique mechanic is this magic stealing an elemental system. So every enemy, every these are the mage seekers, right? And every enemy has their own type of magic. And when you highlight them, you point the stick at them, it shows you what they are. So this guy's
Oh, the color
frost.
changes too. Yeah,
Yeah, this guy's frost, and this other guy's fire. And when you throw your chain at him, you take his power.
that's
So
cool.
yeah, so the whole system is taking powers from one enemy and using them on another enemy that's weak to it. So every type of element has another element that it is strong and weak against.
So
Fire and
there'll be a
ice
lot
are
of like combat arenas with different enemies with different elemental types. Can you like combine them and stuff?
well, you can't combine them, but you're right. The
Oh,
whole
okay.
idea is like I'm fighting this fire and ice guy and I want to take the fire and shoot it at the ice guy or vice versa because you
Hmm.
get like the bonus damage from that. The chain can also be used to grapple. So that there you just like cleared a gap, but you can also grapple onto enemies and start combos on them, like either light combos or heavy combos. So it's all about weaving together like the dodging and the melee from like Hyper Light Drifter style, but then also aiming your stick and stealing people's powers and firing it back at them,
Hmm.
which is such a cool combination of powers that like feels really unique, even in this pretty familiar style of like top-down action. Just like blending in like button mashing combos with like aiming and launching spells feels really cool. And it actually like took my brain a little bit to be like, okay, what buttons am I pressing here? This is so weird.
Yeah, like watching this now, it seems like on the surface the combat could be quite simple, but you're constantly having to like figure out which like magic to apply to your chains. So I imagine like
Yeah.
it gets quite interesting.
Yeah,
Well,
and
even here, look.
it's one of those like really high skill ceiling things, right? Because like you could just bash all these dudes and dash and dodge their attacks and just keep punching. But if you can quickly assess the battlefield and be like, that's a fire guy, that's a whatever guy, and like if I take his power and use it on that guy, he's weak to it. If you can like do that mental calculus quick enough,
you're gonna deal way more damage.
Yeah, and you can like clear through these situations a lot faster. So yeah, so the whole idea is that you are recruiting mages and building up an army so that you can overthrow Demacia, and it's really just a revenge story at its heart, I think. And as you save mages and recruit them to your town, that sort of is your like upgrade path. Like your villagers are your new abilities and stuff. And as you progress, Silas gets his own powers. So it's not just the things that you can steal. You can see up in the top left, that's like his spell wheel.
Like a hotkey of sorts, yeah.
Yeah. So you just like move the D-pad around and you can access all of his different spells. And these aren't targeted spells. They're more like AoE stuff, like things you don't have to aim. But you have a mana bar. That's the purple one. And you only get mana back by dealing melee damage. So so when you cast your spells, you then have to go in and fight to be able to cast more spells. So yeah, so here I've got like that lightning pad I can lay down. I also have like a heal, and then I have a burst of fireballs. And they said there's 40 different spells that Silas will have, and that's separate from all the spells you'll be able to steal from your enemies and use against them. So a lot of different combat options. It's kind of overwhelming. It's a lot going on. But I think it is a really unique take on this kind of game, and I think people are going to really like it if they can get past the League of Legends of it all, because that's either like it's either you love it or you hate it, right? Like people that don't like League might not pay attention. That's what worries me about a lot of the Riot Forge games. Like we were talking about.
It even felt like Ruined King had that reputation. Like people saw League in the title. I think Arcane usurped that because it was Netflix and everyone could watch it. But like with Ruined King, it was like, oh, these are League characters. Is it a League game? Or like Hextech Mayhem was an easier thing to bite onto. But I think, as you said, like the Hyperlight Drifter and Hades comparisons could be enough to get people into this.
Yeah, I hope so. This big guy in the middle cannot take physical damage. So you have to use your spells, but if you're out of mana, then you have to steal other people's spells to hit him. So it's kind of like you have to keep some enemies alive until he dies in order to
that's
get
cool.
him. Yeah.
I've always loved games that have that like back and forth melee magic management, because as you said, if you just gained magic back automatically, this would probably be quite dry because people wouldn't experiment.
Right. Yeah. And it also means that you can do so many different things with the arenas.
Yeah.
There's so many different like combinations of enemies and different ways to handle them. So let's jump to the boss fight, which is pretty interesting. So the boss appears here, but you don't actually fight the boss. You are fighting this gate because you're trying to break this gate and free this mage so that they can join your rebellion. So Wisteria is technically the boss, but you can't hurt Wisteria. And the longer the fight goes on, the more minions Wisteria summons, and they all have their own effects. Like there's one that will silence you, and so you have to like break away from the fight and go take out the one that's silencing you before you can get back into the action.
Okay.
So you'll see here, it starts out pretty simple. You're just trying to dodge these ground effects while you focus on the gate. But pretty quickly, a lot more dudes start coming in, and you kind of have to decide like how much time you want to devote to like splitting off and taking out these minions versus just trying to burn down the gate as quick as possible. I thought it was just like a pretty inventive way to do a boss fight, and I'm hoping that, you know, throughout the game, there's a lot of boss fights that are as unique as this
Yeah,
one.
it's kind of refreshing that like your focus is breaking that gate down and almost like avoiding the damage of the boss, and the game's incentivizing you not to hit her. Like that's
Yeah.
kind of cool. Especially
Yeah.
they are setting shit off constantly. Like, oh my god.
So now
Oh,
the gate's invulnerable until you take out these like turrets that are channeling on it. But if you get in the way of the beam, you take like massive damage.
can you damage
So
the boss, or does it just not let you?
you can't damage the boss at all.
Okay.
So you'll see in a second a bunch of those like turrets will pop up that'll all start guarding the gate at the same time. So it's not anything groundbreaking, but it's just a good example of like how clever the encounters in this game are going to be. As far as like the pixel art stuff goes, I know that's kind of an acquired taste or whatever, but I think it looks gorgeous. I like that. There's so many animations. Every enemy has their own like attack animations and stuff. I think it looks really cool, and you can't hear it, but the music is really good too.
I'm
It's
trying
just
to think
like,
what it reminds me of that isn't Hyperlight Drifter.
yeah, it's one of those things, right? Like this is just like there's so many games like this, but not that many that have really broken out.
100%.
See, here's all these turrets that are just destroying me. Yeah, it feels really polished. It's really high quality. This is from the team that did Moonlighter. Did you ever play that?
Was that the farming game?
No, Moonlighter was this dungeon crawler where you played a shopkeeper, and so you would,
No, yes, that game.
yeah, you would go out and clear dungeons, and then you would take your loot back to sell in your shop.
Yeah,
So
game
that was a pretty cool inversion of a genre, and I think this is doing some really similar things. But I'm super impressed by it. I love League stuff anyway. As I mentioned, I've had really good experiences with the Riot Forge games so far, and yeah, I think this is gonna be like this is gonna be
Oh
a
my
winner.
God, those animations coming off. Yeah, this looks great. I'm down. You've sold me, Eric.
So that's the Mageseeker. It is coming out on pretty much everything on April 18th. So we don't have a long wait. That's all for the Mageseeker for today. Thank you so much for watching. You can check out the preview on the website, linked down in the description. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell, and visit us at thegamer.com. That's thegamer. No